My husband texted wrong timing while standing over our son's empty hospital bed. I'm Sarah Miller, 42 years old, and what happened at that cemetery 3 days later destroyed a man who thought he was untouchable. When your husband chooses his mistress over your dying son, when he flies to Vegas while surgeons fight to save your child's life, you discover exactly what you're capable of. What I did with an empty coffin, 200 witnesses, and one perfectly timed text message didn't just end my marriage. It ended everything David Miller built over 15 years. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It started 3 days before when I discovered something in David's office that would change everything, something that proved our son's crisis was just an inconvenience to his plans. For 15 years, I'd been the perfect corporate wife. You know the type, the woman who gave up her career to support her husband's dreams, who hosted dinner parties for his clients, who smiled when he introduced me as just a housewife to his Harvard MBA colleagues. David controlled everything. The house was in his name, the cars, the investments, even my credit cards, all under his watchful eye. He'd set my spending limit at $500 a month, claiming it was for budgeting purposes. I needed his permission to buy a winter coat for our son Ethan. "You wouldn't understand, Sarah. It's business," he'd say whenever I asked about our finances. The condescension in his voice had become so familiar, I'd stopped hearing it as an insult. His friends saw me as decoration. At company events, they'd talk around me, never to me. David would laugh along when his partner James made jokes about keeping the wives happy with shopping money. I'd stand there, holding my wine glass, pretending their words didn't sting. But 3 months ago, something shifted. The credit card statements started showing charges I didn't recognize. Hotel stays during his supposed client dinners. Jewelry purchases that never made it home. Restaurant bills for two when he claimed to be working late alone. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, what could I do even if I wasn't? With no income of my own, no access to our accounts, and no family nearby, I was trapped in a golden cage of my own making. That's what David counted on. That's what they all counted on. That Sarah Miller would stay quiet, stay grateful, stay in her place. They were wrong. The late nights started in January. David would slip into bed at 2, 3 in the morning, thinking I was asleep. The smell of unfamiliar perfume, something floral and young, clung to his shirts. Not my lavender. Never my lavender anymore. His phone became his lifeline. He'd guard it like a weapon, taking it to the bathroom, sleeping with it under his pillow. When it rang during dinner, he'd step outside, leaving Ethan and me at the table in silence. "Dad's been weird lately, Mom. Are you guys okay?" Ethan asked one night, pushing his pasta around his plate. My brilliant 15-year-old son, too perceptive for his own good. "Everything's fine, sweetheart," I lied, watching David pace in the backyard, gesturing animatedly at someone who could make him smile in ways I hadn't seen in years. The business trips multiplied. Vegas, Miami, San Francisco, always urgent, always last minute. He'd pack his best suits, the cologne I'd bought him for our anniversary, the watch his father gave him for special occasions. "Big deal closing," he'd say, pecking my cheek like I was his mother, not his wife. "Could change everything for us." I started documenting. Screenshots of credit card statements, photos of receipts left carelessly in his pockets, a journal of dates, times, and excuses. Not because I had a plan, I didn't think I deserved one, but because I needed proof that I wasn't going crazy, that this distance between us was real. The calls came at midnight, sometimes later. He'd creep downstairs, whispering urgently into his phone. Once I followed, standing in the hallway shadows as he laughed softly, intimately, with someone who wasn't me. "Soon," I heard him promise. "Very soon, baby." That's when I knew. But knowing and proving are different things entirely. Thursday morning changed everything. David left his laptop open while showering, the first time in months. His email was still logged in, and there it was. A Delta Airlines confirmation for 2 first-class tickets to Vegas. Departure, Monday, March 15th, 10 o'clock a.m. Passengers: David Miller and Jessica Hayes. My hands shook as I read the date again. Monday was Ethan's surgery. The brain tumor we'd discovered 6 weeks ago, benign but pressing on his optic nerve. The surgery we'd scheduled and rescheduled 3 times to fit David's calendar. Jessica Hayes, 28 years old, according to her LinkedIn, which I found in 30 seconds. Senior marketing associate at David's company. Blonde, yoga-toned, with the kind of smile that belonged in toothpaste commercials. Her Instagram showed weekend trips to wine country, designer handbags, and cryptic posts about new beginnings and following your heart. The tickets were purchased with the company card, the same account that required board approval for any personal use. But David was CEO. Who would question him? I heard the shower turn off and quickly closed the laptop, my heart hammering against my ribs. David emerged, toweling his hair, oblivious. "Morning," he said, not looking at me. "I'll be late tonight. Client dinner." "Ethan's pre-op appointment is at 3, I reminded him. "Can't make it. Send me updates." Before I could respond, Ethan appeared in the doorway, pale and unsteady. His eyes rolled back, and he crumpled to the floor like a marionette with cut strings. "Ethan!" I screamed, dropping to my knees beside him. David stood frozen for exactly 2 seconds. Then he grabbed his phone, not to call 911, but to text someone. I saw him type, "Might need to postpone." That's when I knew my husband was already gone. The emergency room was chaos. Ethan seized twice in the ambulance, his body rigid and trembling while I held his hand and whispered prayers I hadn't said since childhood. "The tumors shifted," Dr. Rodriguez explained, pulling up the MRI on her tablet. "It's pressing harder on the optic nerve. We need to operate within 72 hours or risk permanent blindness, possibly worse." "Monday," I said immediately. "Can you do Monday morning?" "Yes, I'll clear my schedule. 8 a.m. sharp." David arrived an hour later, coffee in hand, Bluetooth in ear. He ended his call reluctantly, irritation flickering across his face. "The surgery can wait," he announced, not even looking at Ethan's unconscious form. "Tuesday or Wednesday would work better." "David, the doctor said—" "Doctors always say it's urgent. This Vegas deal is worth $12 million. One day won't matter." Dr. Rodriguez looked between us, confusion evident. "Mr. Miller, your son could lose his sight. Every hour increases the risk." "The surgery can wait. This deal can't." He pulled out his phone, already dialing. "I'll sign whatever waivers you need." My son stirred, reaching for my hand. "Mom," he whispered. "Everything's blurry." David didn't even glance over. He was texting rapidly, probably Jessica, probably about their Monday flight. The medical power of attorney he'd insisted I sign last year meant he could override any decision I made about Ethan's care. "Please," I begged, my voice breaking. "He's your son." David finally looked at me, and the coldness in his eyes made my blood freeze. "I know what's best for this family, Sarah. I always have." He signed the surgical postponement form and walked out, leaving me holding our frightened son while nurses exchanged worried glances. I had $43 in my wallet and a credit card that David had frozen temporarily after I'd questioned the Vegas charges. The hospital wanted a $5,000 deposit for Monday's surgery. Without David's signature, they wouldn't proceed. "Can't you use your savings?" my sister asked over the phone from Portland. "What savings?" David managed everything. I hadn't seen a bank statement in 5 years. He said it was easier that way, that I should focus on what I did best, taking care of the home. His mother, Patricia, answered on the third ring. "Sarah, David told me about your hysteria. The boy's fine. A few days won't hurt." "Patricia, please. Ethan could go blind." "Don't be dramatic. David knows what's best. He always has." I called 4 lawyers that afternoon. Each consultation cost money I didn't have. The last one, a woman named Catherine, was blunt. "Without proof of immediate danger or financial abuse, no judge will override your husband's medical authority. Document everything. But right now, your hands are tied. David's business partner, James, stopped by that evening, supposedly to check on Ethan, but I heard him on the porch reporting back. She's falling apart, just like you said. Might be time to consider that facility we discussed. Facility. They were already planning to have me committed. Only one person hadn't responded to David's narrative: his father, Robert Miller Sr. The retired judge had been silent for 3 months, missing family dinners, declining calls. David claimed they'd had a business disagreement, but something in the old man's absence felt deliberate, calculated. I sat beside Ethan's hospital bed that night, watching him sleep fitfully, and realized I was completely alone. No money, no allies, no options, or so everyone believed. If you've ever felt powerless in your own life, you'll understand what happened next. Before we continue, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. I'm sharing this story because too many of us stay silent when we shouldn't. Comment below if you've ever had to stand up to someone who underestimated you. Now, let me tell you about the plan that changed everything. Saturday night. David threw his quarterly client party at our house, 50 guests, catered dinner, premium bar. I was expected to play hostess while Ethan lay upstairs, dizzy and nauseous from the tumor's pressure. Jessica arrived at 7, wearing the red dress David had charged to his card last month. She kissed him on the cheek in my kitchen, in front of my friends, her hand lingering on his chest. "Everyone meet Jessica," David announced, his arm around her waist. "She's the future of our company, brilliant mind, incredible vision." "Unlike some people who peaked in college," he added, glancing at me. The room went silent. Even his drunk colleagues recognized the cruelty. Jessica laughed, musical and false. "David, you're terrible." She touched the tennis bracelet on her wrist, the one I'd reported missing 2 weeks ago. "Sarah's great with the house," David continued, vodka making him bold. "But Jess here handles the real work, the complex stuff." My neighbor Linda gasped audibly. David's partner James smirked into his whiskey. "And Jessica?" Jessica placed her hand on her stomach in a gesture so deliberate, so calculated that I knew before she spoke. 8 weeks, she whispered to David, loud enough for me to hear. "I took the test this morning." The champagne glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the marble floor. David didn't even flinch. He pulled Jessica closer, and in front of everyone who'd attended our wedding, who'd celebrated our anniversaries, who'd watched Ethan grow up, he kissed her. "Get this cleaned up, Sarah," he said, stepping over the broken glass. "You're embarrassing yourself." I knelt to gather the shards, my hands bleeding, while 50 people watched in silence. But I wasn't embarrassed. I was done. After the guests left, I found David's office door ajar. His computer was locked, but the filing cabinet wasn't. Inside, beneath tax returns and insurance papers, I discovered the truth. Asset transfer documents dated 3 months ago. The house moved to a trust, our investments liquidated and relocated. Business shares redistributed. Everything we'd built together, systematically stripped from our joint ownership. The divorce papers were already drafted. Grounds: mental instability. His evidence: credit card statements showing erratic spending, charges he'd made himself. Medical records suggesting paranoid delusions, from a psychiatrist I'd never seen. Witness statements about my deteriorating mental state, signed by James and 2 other partners. He planned to leave me with nothing. Worse, he planned to take Ethan. But David had made one mistake. The security system he'd installed last year, the one he never learned to properly use, uploaded everything to the cloud. Every conversation in his office, every late-night call, every meeting with Jessica in our home while I was at Ethan's doctor appointments. I sat at my laptop until dawn, downloading everything. David with Jessica, discussing the timeline. David with James, laughing about the crazy wife narrative. David with his lawyer, strategizing how to declare me unfit. And then I found it. The recording from Thursday night. David telling Jessica about the $12 million embezzlement scheme hidden in the Vegas deal. How he'd pinned it on a junior analyst who'd already been fired. How the board would never know. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're not alone. RMS. Robert Miller Sr." David's father knew. I made my decision then, sitting in my kitchen at sunrise, Ethan's surgery 2 days away. I texted back. "I need everything ready by Thursday. Everything." Sunday morning, I met Catherine, the lawyer, at a coffee shop downtown. This time, I had evidence. "Jesus Christ," she whispered, scrolling through the files on my tablet. This is criminal. The embezzlement alone could put him away for 20 years. "I don't want him in jail," I said calmly. "I want him destroyed." She studied me over her coffee. "The legal route will take months. He'll hide assets offshore, claim the recordings were edited, drag you through hell. Then we don't go legal, not yet." I spent the afternoon with a forensic accountant Robert Sr. had recommended. We traced every transaction, every hidden account. David had stolen $4 million from the company over 2 years, funneling it through Jessica's consulting firm, a shell company that existed only on paper. "Your father-in-law was right," the accountant said. "David's not as smart as he thinks. The paper trail is obvious once you know where to look." That evening, I hacked David's email. Not difficult when you've been married 15 years and he still uses variations of the same password. His inbox revealed everything. The Vegas trip was a setup to establish Jessica as his common-law wife in Nevada. The pregnancy was planned. The Monday surgery date had been deliberately chosen. But the most damning discovery was an email thread with his mistress from 2 months ago. "Once Sarah's committed, Ethan's trust fund is ours. The kid's surgery is the perfect trigger. She'll crack when I refuse to show up." My son wasn't just collateral damage, he was bait. I forwarded everything to 3 email addresses: Catherine, Robert Sr., and myself. Then I created a 4th copy and scheduled it to send to someone special, but not yet. The trap was set. Monday morning, 6 a.m., 2 hours before Ethan's postponed surgery. A knock at the door. Robert Miller Sr. stood on my porch, impeccable in his 3-piece suit despite the early hour. The retired judge looked older than his 72 years, but his eyes burned with purpose. "Sarah," he said simply, "may I come in?" We sat in the kitchen while Ethan slept upstairs. Robert placed an envelope on the table but didn't explain it. Instead, he spoke carefully, weighing each word. "I've been watching David for 3 months, since I discovered discrepancies in the family trust." He paused. "He's not the man I raised. Perhaps he never was. Why didn't you say something sooner?" He smiled sadly. "Evidence, Sarah. A judge's habit. I needed proof, not suspicion. You found what I couldn't." He slid the envelope toward me. Inside was a single key and a business card for a local news station. "Safety Deposit Box 447, he said. "Downtown branch. Everything you need is there. The reporter, Amanda Chen, is expecting your call Thursday afternoon." What's in the box? David's original employment contract, the one that clearly states any embezzlement results in immediate termination and forfeiture of all shares. He stood to leave. Also, security footage from his office building. The real footage, not the edited versions he submitted to his lawyer. "Mr. Miller, why are you helping me?" He paused at the door. "Because Ethan deserves better. Because you deserved better. And because David needs to learn what justice looks like." After he left, I found a text from Dr. Rodriguez. "Ethan's surgery is confirmed for Thursday, 8 a.m. I've waived the deposit. A benefactor insisted." The pieces were falling into place. But first, I had one more performance to give. Monday afternoon, Catherine's office. She'd assembled a team: forensic accountant, digital security expert, and a prosecutor who happened to be her law school roommate. "The embezzlement is airtight," the prosecutor confirmed. "But the conspiracy to commit fraud, the false medical records, The attempted institutional commitment of a spouse for financial gain, that's RICO territory. RICO? I asked. Racketeering. It means we can freeze everything immediately. Assets, accounts, even Jessica's holdings. The security expert pulled up David's cloud storage. He's been sloppy. Every deleted text, every private photo with Jessica, every financial manipulation, it's all here, including this. She played an audio file from David's car Bluetooth. David and Jessica, planning my accident after the commitment. Once she's institutionalized for 6 months, we can declare her incompetent. If something happens to her inside, suicide is common in those places, everything goes to me as Ethan's guardian. My blood went cold. Catherine grabbed my hand. We file Thursday morning, she said. The moment David lands in Vegas, we freeze everything. He'll have no access to funds, no ability to run. What about the surgery? Happens as planned. We need David to believe he's won. When he skips it for Vegas, that's abandonment of a minor in medical crisis. No judge in the country would side with him after that. The digital expert handed me a phone. Burner. Untraceable. When you're ready Thursday, you send one text. We handle the rest. That evening, I played my role perfectly. Begged David to reconsider. Cried when he refused. Even offered to sign whatever papers he wanted if he'd just delay Vegas by 1 day. Stop being so dramatic, Sarah, he said, packing his suitcase. The surgery's routine. I'll be back Tuesday. Behind my tears, I was counting down. 62 hours until showtime. Wednesday night, the eve of Ethan's surgery. David and Jessica were already in Vegas, their Instagram stories broadcasting champagne toasts and casino floors. At 11 p.m., David posted a photo. Jessica's hand with a massive engagement ring, caption, starting fresh with the right one, #new beginnings, #Vegas baby. Ethan saw it first. His face crumbled as he scrolled through the comments. David's colleagues congratulating him, Jessica's friends celebrating, everyone apparently forgetting David had a wife and sick son. Mom, Ethan whispered, is Dad not coming tomorrow? No, sweetheart, he's not. Because of her? I held my son as he sobbed, his body shaking with more than just tears. The stress was affecting him physically, his vision blurring, head pounding. Dr. Rodriguez had warned us, emotional trauma could worsen his condition. At midnight, David sent a group text to his family. Sarah's having another episode. If she contacts you with wild stories, please ignore. I'm handling the situation with appropriate professionals. His mother replied immediately. We understand, David. Do what's necessary. His brother. About time you got free from that mess. But Robert Sr. remained silent. At 2 a.m., Ethan's monitors started alarming. His blood pressure had spiked dangerously. Dr. Rodriguez rushed in, stabilizing him with medication. Mrs. Miller, we need to move the surgery to 6 a.m. His body can't take much more stress. I texted David. Ethan's worse. Surgery moved earlier, please. His response came instantly. Stop the manipulation, Sarah. I've already signed the commitment papers. Someone will pick you up Friday. I screenshot everything. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I took a photo of Ethan, pale and unconscious, monitors surrounding him, and I saved it. Not to send. Not yet. But soon, everyone would see exactly what David Miller abandoned for a Vegas weekend. Thursday, 5:30 a.m. Ethan was being prepped for surgery. I held his hand as they wheeled him toward the operating room. Mom, he said groggily, if something happens, nothing's going to happen, baby. But if it does, tell Dad I forgive him. Those words broke something in me. My 15-year-old son, facing potential blindness or worse, still had more grace than his father ever would. At 6 a.m., Ethan went under anesthesia. At 6:15, Dr. Rodriguez emerged, her face grave. Mrs. Miller, we need to talk privately. In her office, she closed the door carefully. The surgery is proceeding perfectly. Ethan will be fine, but I need you to trust me for the next 4 hours. I don't understand. Your father-in-law explained everything, what your husband is doing, what he's planning. She pulled up Ethan's chart. In about an hour, I'm going to make an announcement. Ethan will be sedated but safe in recovery. Are you prepared for what comes next? I nodded, understanding flooding through me. At 7:23 a.m., Dr. Rodriguez walked into the waiting room where 30 of our friends and family had gathered. Word had spread about the emergency surgery. Her face was professionally somber. I'm sorry to inform you that we've encountered severe complications. Ethan Miller experienced cardiac arrest on the table. We're doing everything we can, but you should prepare for the worst. The gasps echoed through the room. Phones appeared instantly. Within minutes, my phone exploded with notifications. David had 47 missed calls by 7:30. I texted him once. He's gone, David. Our son is gone. Then I turned off my phone and waited. The hardest performance of my life was about to begin, and I had to be perfect. By 8 a.m., word had reached Vegas. David called the hospital directly, but Dr. Rodriguez, following protocol for family emergencies, would only confirm that the situation was critical. His response came via text to his mother, who showed me with tears in her eyes. Wrong timing. Deal too important. Sarah's being dramatic as usual. Patricia Miller, his own mother, stared at the message in disbelief. He thinks you're lying? He knows I'm not, I said quietly. He just doesn't care. The next text came to me directly. A Venmo transfer for $5,000. The memo line, funeral expenses, handle it yourself. Then, the killing blow. Cremate him quickly. I need this resolved before I'm back. Don't make a scene. I showed the message to everyone in the waiting room. Robert Sr. read it twice, his jaw clenching. Even James, David's loyal partner, looked sick. Sarah, Robert Sr. said loudly enough for everyone to hear, my son is no longer welcome in this family. Proceed however you see fit. I stood, channeling every ounce of grief a mother would feel, and announced, services will be held this afternoon at Greenwood Cemetery, 4 o'clock. Please, I need all of you there. Ethan would want to be surrounded by love, not abandoned like his father abandoned him. The room erupted. People hugged me, cursed David, offered help. Within an hour, the story was everywhere. CEO skips dying son's surgery for Vegas trip with Mistress. The Instagram post of Jessica's engagement ring was screenshot and shared hundreds of times, paired with photos of Ethan from happier days. By noon, 200 people had confirmed attendance at the funeral. Amanda Chen from Channel 7 called, asking if she could cover the service to honor Ethan's memory. Yes, I said. Let everyone see what David Miller values most. What would you do if the person who vowed to love you showed their true colors at your darkest moment? Before I reveal what happened at that cemetery, please share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Too many people suffer in silence, thinking they have no power. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves justice. Now, let me show you how one text message changed everything. Greenwood Cemetery, 3:45 p.m. The scene was set perfectly. 200 folding chairs arranged in semicircles around a closed mahogany casket. White roses everywhere, Ethan's favorite. An enlarged photo of him laughing at last year's birthday party, before the diagnosis, before everything fell apart. Robert Sr. sat in the front row, stone-faced in his black suit. Beside him, Catherine the lawyer, trying to look like a family friend. Behind them, Dr. Rodriguez, who'd arrived in scrubs to pay respects between surgeries. The Channel 7 news van parked discreetly at the cemetery entrance. Amanda Chen and her cameraman were already filming B-roll footage of arriving guests. 3 other local stations had sent reporters after the story went viral. I stood by the casket in the black dress David had bought me for his company's gala last year, the one he'd said made me look almost sophisticated. My hands rested on the polished wood, the picture of a grieving mother. Hidden beneath the flowers, 3 phones were recording, live streaming actually, to a cloud server Catherine's tech expert had set up. Every word, every moment would be preserved. At 3:55, James arrived with 5 other board members from David's company. They looked uncomfortable, conflicted. One approached me. Sarah, we had no idea David was. The board wants you to know we're reviewing everything. Thank you, I said softly. Ethan would appreciate you being here. At 4 o'clock exactly, the funeral director nodded to me. 200 people fell silent. I pulled out my phone, making sure everyone could see me typing. The message to David was simple. He's not dead. Come to the cemetery, now. Then I added, they know everything. I held the phone up, showing the delivered notification. The crowd murmured, confused. Now we wait, I announced. Let's see if a father's love can bring him home. My phone rang within 30 seconds. David's name flashed on the screen. I put it on speaker, holding it high so everyone could hear. What the hell do you mean he's not dead? David's voice boomed across the cemetery. I stayed silent. Sarah, answer me. Is this another one of your games? Still nothing. I swear to God, if you're lying about this. I hung up and typed another message. The casket is empty. Everyone knows about Jessica, about the money. Your father is here with documents. This time I didn't answer his calls. 15 of them in rapid succession. The crowd watched my phone light up again and again, David's desperation growing with each ignored ring. Jessica's voice came through on the 18th call. David had accidentally accepted while arguing with her. The cemetery speakers picked up every word. We should leave. Drive to Mexico. Now, David. Shut up. My father's there. If he has the contracts. I don't care about your contracts. We have 4 million. That's my money. I'm not running like some. The call cut off. I sent one final text. Channel 7 is here. So are the police. Your move. Robert Sr. stood up and announced to the crowd. My son has exactly 18 minutes to get here from Vegas Airport. He landed 12 minutes ago. The cemetery entrance was visible from where we stood. 2 police cars had pulled up, engines running but lights off. Not threatening, just waiting. People started pulling out their phones, recording everything. The live stream viewers had jumped to thousands. Comments flooded in supporting me, condemning David, demanding justice. At 4:27, a black Porsche came screaming into the cemetery drive, taking the speed bump so fast it nearly went airborne. David had made it in 17 minutes. David burst from the Porsche before it fully stopped, Jessica stumbling out behind him in her Vegas cocktail dress and heels. They looked exactly like what they were, guilty people fleeing a crime scene. He charged toward the casket, his face purple with rage and panic. 200 phones rose in unison, capturing every second. Where's Ethan? He roared. Where's my son? I stood perfectly still, my hand resting on the casket. Open it. What? Open the casket, David. Show everyone what kind of father you are. His hands shook as he approached. Jessica hung back, trying to hide behind a tree, but the cameras found her anyway. Someone in the crowd started a live stream that would eventually reach 2 million views. David fumbled with the latches. The lid creaked open, revealing burgundy silk lining and nothing else. Empty. The crowd gasped. David staggered backward, his mouth opening and closing like a landed fish. You psychotic! You! He's alive, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent cemetery. Our son is alive, recovering from successful surgery that you chose to miss for a Vegas weekend with your mistress. The whispers started immediately. He missed the surgery? For Vegas? While his son could have died? David spun toward the crowd, seeing the phones, the news cameras, his board members, his father. This is entrapment. She's crazy. She's been planning. Planning what, David? Robert Sr. stood up, his judge's voice commanding attention. Planning to expose the truth? Dad, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Ethan! Robert Sr. called out. From behind the maintenance building, Ethan emerged in a wheelchair, Dr. Rodriguez pushing him. His head was bandaged, but his eyes were clear and filled with disgust as he looked at his father. Hi, Dad, Ethan said, his young voice cutting through the chaos. Glad you could finally make it. The crowd erupted. Jessica tried to run, But security guards, off-duty cops Robert Sr. had hired, blocked her path. David stood frozen between the empty casket and his very alive son, finally understanding that he'd been played. But we weren't done, not even close. Ethan, David started, reaching toward his son. I can explain. Don't! Ethan's voice was steady, mature beyond his 15 years. I heard everything. Mom showed me the texts. Cremate him quickly, really, Dad? The crowd's murmur turned to angry rumbling. Someone shouted, shame! Others joined in. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the cemetery's speaker system. Robert Sr. had arranged that too. Before anyone leaves, you should hear this. David's voice filled the air, recorded from his home office. Once Sarah's committed, Ethan's trust fund is ours. The kid's surgery is the perfect trigger. She'll crack when I refuse to show up. Then Jessica. And if she doesn't? David again. Accidents happen in psychiatric facilities. Suicide is common. The recording ended. The silence was deafening. Patricia Miller, David's own mother, walked up to him and slapped him across the face. The crack echoed like a gunshot. You're no son of mine, she said, tears streaming down her face. David looked around wildly, realizing he was surrounded by witnesses to his confession. His board members, his clients, his family, everyone he'd ever tried to impress. I want my lawyer, he whispered. Too late for that, I said, pulling the microphone closer. Let me tell you what happens next. The cemetery's maintenance building had a projector set up, another arrangement by Robert Sr. The white sheet hanging between two trees lit up with David's emails, texts, and financial records. $4 million, I announced, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. That's what you embezzled from your own company over 2 years, funneling it through Jessica's fake consulting firm. The board members pushed forward, their faces shifting from shock to fury as they recognized their own forged signatures on approval documents. Those are fabricated, David shouted. She's making this up. The next slide showed security footage from David's office. Him and Jessica counting cash, laughing about stupid investors. The timestamp showed last Tuesday, when he claimed to be in client meetings. That's illegal surveillance, David protested. Actually, Catherine stepped forward, it's from your own security system, the one you installed to monitor employees, completely legal and completely damning. Jessica tried to speak. I didn't know. You didn't know you were married? I clicked to the next slide, a marriage certificate from Las Vegas, dated 6 weeks ago. That's bigamy, Jessica. Your husband in California might be interested. The crowd gasped. Jessica's face went white. How did you? Your Instagram isn't as private as you think. Robert Sr. took the microphone. As former judge and current board member of Miller Enterprises, I'm officially calling for an emergency vote. All in favor of immediate termination of David Miller as CEO? Every board member's hand shot up. Motion carried. Security, please escort Mr. Miller from the premises. But the police stepped forward first. David Miller, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. As they read him his rights, I played one final recording, David promising Jessica he'd take care of me permanently once I was institutionalized. That's attempted murder conspiracy, the officer added. You're looking at 25 to life. The arrest happened in slow motion. David's hands behind his back, the metallic click of handcuffs, the Miranda rights echoing across the cemetery. 200 phones captured every second. Dad, David called out desperately to Robert Sr., you can't let them do this. I'm your son. Robert Sr. walked over slowly, deliberately. You stopped being my son the moment you planned to murder your wife. Catherine appeared with a stack of documents. Mr. Miller, you're being served. Divorce papers, emergency custody transfer, and a restraining order. You're not to come within 500 feet of Sarah or Ethan. You can't take my son. I'm not your son anymore, Ethan said from his wheelchair. I'm taking Mom's maiden name. Ethan Hayes has a nice ring to it, don't you think? The second police car pulled up for Jessica. She was sobbing now, mascara streaming down her face as they arrested her for embezzlement, bigamy, and fraud. "David, do something!" she screamed. "With what money?" I asked calmly. "The assets are frozen. Every account, every property, every investment. It's all evidence now." The crowd began to applaud. Slowly at first, then building to thunder. Someone shouted, "Justice for Sarah!" Others took up the chant. James, David's partner, approached me. "Sarah, the board would like to offer you a position. Chief Ethics Officer. We need someone with integrity to clean up this mess." "I'll consider it," I said, watching the police cars pull away with David and Jessica. "But first, I need to take care of my son." The news crews were already editing their packages. Within an hour, the story would be national. CEO arrested at son's fake funeral in embezzlement sting. But I wasn't thinking about that. I was holding Ethan's hand, finally free. Before the police car pulled away, David made one last desperate play. He broke free momentarily, falling to his knees in front of the crowd. "Please, Sarah, please! I'm sorry! I made mistakes, but I love you! I love our son!" The camera zoomed in on his face, tears streaming, suit dirty from the cemetery ground, the mighty CEO reduced to begging. 20 years, Sarah! 20 years we've been together. Doesn't that mean anything?" I walked over slowly, the crowd parting like the Red Sea. I knelt down to his level, making sure my words would be captured clearly. 20 years? You mean the 20 years I supported your dreams while you killed mine? The 20 years I raised our son while you built your empire? The 20 years I stayed silent while you humiliated me? I can change. You had 15 years to change. You chose Jessica instead. You chose Vegas over our son's surgery. You chose money over family. The money was for us. The money was stolen. And now it's gone. I stood up, brushing cemetery dirt off my dress. "I don't negotiate with strangers, Mr. Miller. And that's all you are now, a stranger who happens to share DNA with my son." Ethan wheeled himself forward. "You want to know what hurts most, Dad? It's not that you left. It's that you were planning to have Mom killed. I heard the recording. Everyone did." The crowd was dead silent, hanging on every word. "I would have grown up thinking my mother committed suicide. That's what you wanted. That's who you are." David's face crumbled entirely. The police lifted him up, practically carrying him to the car. As they drove away, someone started clapping, then another. Soon, all 200 guests were applauding, not for the spectacle, but for the justice. Within 2 hours, Cemetery Justice was trending nationally. The video hit 5 million views before midnight. News outlets from CNN to Fox picked up the story. Wife's elaborate sting operation exposes CEO husband's crimes. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Producers from Dr. Phil, Oprah's network, and 3 documentary teams wanted exclusive rights. I declined them all. This wasn't about fame. David's empire crumbled in real time. Clients terminated contracts via Twitter. Investors pulled out publicly, distancing themselves from the scandal. His LinkedIn connections dropped from 5,000 to 12 in 3 days. Jessica's story unraveled even faster. Her real husband, Marcus, came forward with his own tale. She'd emptied their savings account 6 months ago, claiming her mother was sick. The fake pregnancy was just another con. She'd been running similar schemes since college. She targeted powerful men, Marcus told reporters. David wasn't her first, just her biggest score. The security footage from David's office revealed more than embezzlement. There were recordings of him promising promotions for sexual favors, threatening employees who wouldn't comply, and bragging about tax evasion. The FBI joined the investigation. David's 25 to life was looking optimistic, but the sweetest vindication came from an unexpected source. David's Harvard MBA alumni group formally expelled him. The letter, posted publicly, read, "Your actions represent the antithesis of ethical leadership we strive to embody." 3 months later, the company officially dissolved. The board couldn't overcome the reputational damage. 200 people lost their jobs because of David's greed. The internet never forgets, Robert Sr. told me over dinner that week. David thought he was untouchable because he controlled the narrative. You showed him that truth has a way of surfacing. Ethan, recovering beautifully from surgery, added, Mom didn't destroy Dad. He destroyed himself. She just made sure everyone saw it happen. 6 months after the cemetery confrontation, my life looked nothing like before. The divorce settlement awarded me 70% of all assets. The judge called David's behavior the most egregious spousal abuse she'd seen in 30 years. I used the money wisely. First, I established a fund for Ethan's medical care and college. Then I launched Phoenix Rising, a consulting firm helping women document financial abuse and escape toxic marriages safely. My first client was Patricia Miller, David's own mother. She'd discovered her husband had been hiding assets for 40 years. With my help, she recovered $2 million he'd squirreled away. You were always the daughter I wished I had, she told me over coffee. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. Robert Sr. became more than an ally. He became family. He visited Ethan weekly, teaching him chess and sharing stories of justice and integrity. When he updated his will, he left everything to Ethan and me, completely disinheriting David. Blood doesn't make family, he said. Character does. Ethan thrived. The surgery was completely successful, no vision loss, no complications. He started a YouTube channel about surviving toxic parents that gained 100,000 subscribers in 2 months. His message was simple: you're not responsible for your parents' choices, only your own. The business world noticed my work. Fortune 500 companies hired me to conduct ethics audits. My TED Talk, The Power of Documentation, got 3 million views. Publishers offered book deals, but the greatest success was smaller, quieter. Ethan and I eating dinner together without fear, laughing at movies without walking on eggshells, building a life where love meant safety, not control. Mom, Ethan said one evening, I'm proud of you. For exposing your father? No, for showing me that standing up for yourself isn't revenge, it's survival. David's fall from grace was complete and irreversible. After taking a plea deal to avoid life in prison, he got 12 years with possibility of parole in 8. The federal facility in Minnesota was a far cry from his Vegas suites. Jessica flipped on him immediately, testifying about every crime in exchange for a reduced sentence. She served 18 months, then disappeared. Last anyone heard, she was waitressing in Montana under an assumed name. David's prison emails to Ethan went unanswered. Every week, another apology, another plea for forgiveness. Ethan had me print them out, not to read, but to use as evidence for his therapy sessions about manipulation tactics. He's not sorry he did it, Ethan told his therapist. He's sorry he got caught. From prison, David worked in the laundry for 23 cents an hour. The man who once spent $5,000 on a dinner was now saving up for instant ramen. His commissary account showed a balance of $467. No one visited him. His mother had disowned him publicly. His brother changed his last name to distance himself from the scandal. His former friends and colleagues acted like he'd never existed. The only correspondence he received was legal notices, lawsuits from former employees, demands from the IRS, bankruptcy proceedings that would follow him long after prison. I received one letter from him, forwarded through lawyers. I didn't open it. Instead, I had it framed, still sealed, and hung it in my office. A reminder that some doors, once closed, should stay that way. Do you ever think about him? Friends would ask. No, I'd answer honestly. I think about the woman who survived him. I think about the son who thrived despite him. But David Miller? He's just a cautionary tale now. 2 years later, I stood before an audience of 500 women at the National Domestic Violence Summit. My keynote was about financial abuse, the invisible chains that keep women trapped. Document everything, I told them. Every text, every email, every bank statement. Not for revenge, but for protection. Your paper trail is your lifeline. I shared the 3 rules that saved me. First, always have a witness. Robert Sr.'s support made David's gaslighting impossible. Second, use their own systems against them. David's security cameras became my evidence. Third, never threaten, just act. The moment David knew my plan was the moment he'd already lost. After my speech, a young woman approached, crying, "My husband controls everything. I have nothing." "You have more than you think," I told her, handing her my card. "You have the truth. That's where power begins." Phoenix Rising had helped 300 women escape financial abuse. We'd recovered $40 million in hidden assets. We'd put 15 abusers in prison. But more importantly, we'd shown women they weren't crazy, weren't worthless, weren't alone. Ethan, now 17 and heading to Stanford, had become an advocate himself. He spoke at high schools about recognizing toxic relationships, about choosing integrity over blood. "Family isn't who you're born to," he'd say. "It's who stands by you when standing by you costs them something." Robert Sr., now 80 and sharp as ever, served on Phoenix Rising's board. "This is my legacy," he said. "Not the judgments I wrote, but the justice we created from injustice." I no longer hated David. Hate required energy better spent on healing. He was simply a chapter in my story, not the ending, barely even the climax. Just a villain who underestimated his victim. Today, as I share this story with you, I want you to know something important. Your worth isn't determined by anyone else. Not by the person who promised to love you and didn't. Not by the family who should support you and doesn't. Not by the society that tells you to be grateful for crumbs. You are not crazy for documenting abuse. You are not dramatic for demanding respect. You are not vindictive for protecting yourself and your children. You are surviving, and survival is not a sin. If you're watching this and thinking, "But my situation is different, I really have nothing," remember that I started with $43 and a frozen credit card. What I had was determination and the willingness to ask for help. Find your Robert Sr., the unexpected ally who sees your truth. Find your Dr. Rodriguez, the professional who'll bend rules for justice. Find your Catherine, the expert who'll fight beside you. They exist. You just have to look. To those who say I was cruel, that I should have handled it privately. Privacy protects predators. David counted on my silence, on my shame, on my fear of making a scene. The cemetery wasn't about revenge. It was about witnesses. 200 people who could never again say they didn't know. Your story matters. Your pain is valid. Your freedom is worth fighting for. Don't wait for permission to save yourself. Don't apologize for surviving. Don't shrink to make others comfortable with their complicity. Stand up, speak out, document everything. And remember, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so beautiful, so authentic, so free that the person who tried to destroy you becomes utterly irrelevant. You deserve that life. Start building it today. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone. Have you ever had to stand up to someone who underestimated you? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one. Remember, document everything, know your worth, and never apologize for demanding respect. Hit the notification bell for more stories of everyday people finding their power. Until next time, stay strong.